In my 55 years on this planet, I've gotten really good at a few things. And one of those things is overcomplicating the heck out of things so much that I don't even need to do them anymore. Man, am I good at that. And that's what we're going to talk about on today's podcast. Welcome back to the Gym Crafter YouTube channel, everybody. The channel that I started to help ordinary folks like you and I build home and garage gyms that we absolutely love. And not only welcome to the Gym Crafter YouTube channel, folks, but also to the folks watching over on the Gym Crafter training channel. Yes, if you haven't heard, I have two YouTube channels. Here on the main channel, we talk all about building home gyms. And on the Gym Crafter training channel, we talk about what to do in those home gyms. So if you didn't know, now you know. I did start that other channel. Go over and check it out. I'll put links to both channels below so that you guys can check them out. And then also for those of you following over on the Gym Crafter training channel, hopefully in the next week or so, I should have the next playlist up. I will have a pretty complete playlist for everybody out there who would like to lose weight, to not hate their life while they're doing it, and to hopefully make this the absolute last time in that life that you need to go through the hassle of losing weight. So I'm looking forward to that. I've been working hard on that for a while here, and I should have that all set and ready to go for you guys sometime this week. But that is not what we're talking about today. Today we are talking about complexity. I really wanted to make the name of this podcast "Are We Making Things Too Hard?" But then I couldn't keep my mind out of the gutter. So we're going to call it "Are We Going Too Far?" And I've been thinking about this topic, as I do for a lot of them, for quite a while. And one of the things that keeps popping into my mind is, I don't know where I got this from, whether it was a book or a podcast, but I think about this a lot. And when you look at people who are masters at things, people who have spent their lives getting really, really good at something, you'll typically see that they have a life cycle in two respects. First of all, they have a life cycle in what they know, and then they have a life cycle in what they do. What I mean by that is, most people, when they start doing something, they know nothing about that thing, right? That's where we all start. And then as they learn that thing over time, they start adding more and more and more and more knowledge. And if they get really into it, they tend to want to learn every single possible detail, every point of view. For those of you who have gone down podcast rabbit holes like myself, you end up listening to 50 different people's opinions on the same topic and interviewing hundreds of different experts, and you try and learn as much as you can. And then what happens at the end of the life cycle of most masters, what they will tell you is that they really only know one thing, and that's that they know nothing. And typically what that means is, it's not that they know nothing because they're a master and they clearly know a lot, but what they do know is that everything they thought they knew and that they were sure about oftentimes is proven to be wrong. And that's the life cycle of things they know. As far as the things that they do and the tools that they use, what they'll typically do is they'll start out with the basic tools of a hobby or a subject they're trying to learn. And then over the time, as they're gaining that knowledge, they'll add every possible tool in the arsenal that you can. And a lot of us can relate to that as we have hobbies. And especially if you kind of get really deep into hobbies, you end up with a significant other that's like, hey, is there any spot in this house that's not going to be taken up by your stupid hobby? Golfers have golf clubs everywhere. Disc golfers have frisbees everywhere. People who play guitar have guitars everywhere, and amps and pedals, and you name the hobby, you can go way too far and make it way too complex. And as we build that hobby, we tend to add things and on top of things on top of things. But then what happens for the masters, we'll use guitar as an example. Typically what happens is that guitarist, when you go see them in concert, they'll typically play one or two of the hundreds of guitars that they own, because they've circled back to being able to get everything they need out of just one instrument. And that's kind of the life cycle of the things that masters use. So what does it have to do with today's podcast? Well, as we're building our gyms, I see people go through the same life cycle. I've gone through this life cycle. A lot of you guys have gone through this life cycle. A lot of us are knee deep in the middle of this life cycle, right? Like, we start our journey, and this is how a lot of you guys found me, right? Like, you don't know anything about garage gyms. You're Googling around, you're looking on YouTube. Okay, how can I learn about building a garage gym? They're expensive. They take up a lot of space. I don't want to make a bad decision. So how do I make a good decision? You end up listening to lots of podcasts, watching lots of videos, and really trying to get as much knowledge as you can. And then as you build your garage gym and you learn, and unfortunately we all learn lessons the easy way and the hard way. We buy some stuff that maybe we shouldn't have bought, and we learn that we buy cheaper stuff than we should have bought. We buy more expensive stuff than we should have bought, and then we end up buying a lot of stuff, right? Like, if you talk to most people who do garage gyms or do this as a hobby, we have got a garage and a basement and several closets, and every nook and cranny are full of stuff. And then when you get to the end of that life cycle, what happens is, and I'll always compare this to when I first started training, I didn't really do a lot at home. I've always had a home gym, but a lot of my primary training was done at commercial gyms. And some of my favorite gyms to go to are these old school powerlifting gyms, right? Like you walk in, and yes, there's guys on steroids, but there's a lot of guys that are just brutally strong guys who just know what they're doing, right? And when you go up and ask them, one of the great things about these gyms is most of those guys are super helpful. If you're nice and respectful and don't interrupt them in the middle of a lift, they will go to great lengths to help you get better. And the interesting thing for me is anytime I ever got help from one of those guys, the advice was always the same. Like it was always the same. They're like, this is all you need to do: move heavy shit, eat right, and sleep. If you do those things right, if you do those things right, kid, you're gonna go places. And that's invariably some form of that advice was always what they said. None of them said, go fill your garage with lots of equipment. None of them said, hey, let's get fancy. Because in these gyms, they basically had old school power racks, they had rusty barbells, they had iron plates, they had some dumbbells, they had a couple of cable machines, and that's all they had, right? And these guys were brutally strong, just absolute monsters. And again, while yes, some of them were on gear and some of them were on testosterone, a lot of them weren't. A lot of them had just gotten really good at moving heavy shit, fueling themselves right, and sleeping. And that's how they built their bodies. That's how they built their physiques. So I think about that when I see people building their home and garage gyms as well. I think about those guys a lot. Now, before we go too far, if you are one of those people like myself who are in your gym because it's your hobby, because you love to do this, because you love to tinker, because you love to spend extra time in your gym, and that's your happy place. You know, for me, that's where I think, that's where I de-stress, that's where I do lots of things other than just lift. So I like having lots of stuff, right? Like I'm not in there just for results. Yes, I want results, but I just like all the toys, right? It's one of the reasons I do this for a living is I'm like, how can I support all of the toys that I want in my garage gym? Maybe I'll try this. At the time it was a website, but then it turned into a YouTube channel. I'm like, maybe I'll try that. And maybe that will support my awful, kind of expensive habit. So if this is you, this podcast may not rub you the right way because I'm going to give myself some stern advice that I probably have needed for a long time, but also try and give for all of you out there who are watching this, who are on this course to build a garage gym, to get in shape, to get strong, to get lean, and just to get results, but you don't want to devote your whole life to it. You don't want to be the fitness guy or girl. You just want to, you're like, okay, I've come to the grips with the fact that I need to work out and I need to do it a couple times a week. A couple, 3 times in the gym is what I need to do. But I'm not looking to overcomplicate things. I just want results, and I want as many results as I can get for the least amount of time. I want to get kind of the most possible outcome for the least possible input that I can get. Hopefully this podcast will help you a little bit. And then along the way, I really kind of want to ask a lot of you guys who do have all this stuff is, have we gone too far? Like, are we starting to go too far with how much stuff and how many different variations of things that we have available today for garage gyms? And so that I can not be so vague, I'm going to start with giving 3 examples of where I think things may have gone a little bit too far. So let me pull this up. For those of you listening on the audio only podcast, I'm going to be pulling up some stuff that I show on the screen. I'll try and go through it and describe it as I show it. And the first thing I want to talk about is Smith machines. So Smith machines have been around forever. These are not new. They're kind of making a comeback in the home gym space, but Smith machines are by no stretch of the imagination new. And when they started like this body solid Smith machine here on the screen. We've got just a stationary Smith machine. That's all it does. It's not a power rack. There's no cables. It doesn't do anything fancy. It's just a Smith machine. And by the way, this Smith machine's like $2,800. So for everybody who thinks these racks that have all the other stuff on them are expensive, just this Smith machine is $2,800. But we started with that, right? And then we went, you know what? That's not good enough. And next, let's go over to the Rep Fitness Smith machine. And the Rep Fitness Smith machine is one that you can add to any rack. So you can add complexity to anything you already have. And the interesting thing about this is it offers a couple of options. So you see here in this image, it shows the Smith machine in a straight vertical path. And then what you can also do, if you want to, is you can also install it in angled. So it's like, okay, well, if the regular Smith machine is not good enough, now we want to give you the option of putting it on any rack, and we want to give you the option of straight up and down or at an angle. But that's not good enough. Now let's go over here to the Bells of Steel Smith machine, because we not only want to give you the option of straight up and down or at an angle, but we also would like to give you the option of using your own bar so that you can use any different number of types of bars on your Smith machine. But is that good enough? No. So now we're going to go over to Bulletproof Fitness, who has their VTS. And the VTS is basically two trolleys that work on your uprights of your rack. But instead of having a Smith machine that's connected with a bar, you have these trolleys that can have independent individual handles on them, as well as do a ton of other things. And they will allow you to do a unilateral Smith as well as a regular old Smith machine. So now we've got the ability to move each arm independently on a Smith machine. Is that good enough? I don't think so. Now we're going to come over here to the RipFit 3D Smith machine. What's a 3D Smith machine? It's one that goes up and down and it goes forward and back so that it more closely simulates the movement of an actual barbell. Now, the trainer and the barbell purist in me goes, if we're trying to simulate an actual barbell, why don't we just use an actual barbell? But let's say that you need this complication, right? So is that enough? No, that's not enough. So just wait. There's more. So now we go over here to Temple of Gains, who we have the converging unilateral Smith machine. So now, the up and down isn't enough. The angle isn't enough. Now we need to angle it in so that we get more of kind of stress at the top of the movement so that your chest feels more at the top, and it simulates an old hammer strength machine that people like to use. So hopefully you guys get the idea. So what started as just a basic piece of machinery, we have added so many layers of complexity and extra stuff to the Smith machine. Now, again, do the hobbyists look at that and go, ooh, converging 3D Smith machine with unilateral handle? I want three of them, right? Like, yes, a bunch of us want that. But if you're just the average Joe out there and you're trying to build a garage gym and you're doing research and you're watching all those YouTube videos, is all this stuff really helping you? Because now you're stuck in your mired into, well, I thought I was going to, I get these emails all the time. Well, I thought I was going to get this. I was all set on getting this thing with the standard Smith machine. But then I watched this video about, I think it's Maximum Fitness has an all-in-one trainer that has a Smith machine that converges. Should I get that one? It's more money than I want to spend, but gee, it converges. And then, well, then I saw this other one that has these different handles on it. Maybe I should get that. And now we've got people who are just like unable to make a decision. And in reality, do any of these create better results than the other one? I mean, honestly, do any of them give you a better workout than the other? Am I going to get bigger on this converging unilateral Smith machine than I would on this body solid Smith machine here? I don't think so. I don't think you can make a great case for getting better results. Again, it might be more fun, but are you getting better results? Here's the next example. That's the first one. The second example is just the absolute insanity that are cable attachments these days. I've fallen victim to this. Everybody's fallen victim to this because they're cool, right? Like this is like a dangerous drug for us gym nerds because they're affordable. It's not like $3,000 Smith machines, right? These are $30 attachments, $100 attachments, $80. Like I could spend another $150 on my gym. I could spend another $200 on my gym. I could spend another $129 on my gym. No problem. Before you know it, you're buying an entire wall of wall control to hold all of your attachments, and you end up with just so much. Back in the day, what used to be the standard assortment was, what would you have? You would have a lat pull down bar that you could grip in many different places, overhand, underhand. You could do that. You would have kind of a close grip, neutral grip handle. You'd have maybe a little short mini bar, but you didn't even need that because you could do everything on the regular lat bar that you could with that. But you might get that. You'd have maybe like a tricep rope, and what, I don't know what else you'd have. You have maybe one other thing, maybe if that. But that's about all there was. You go into a commercial gym and there were a bunch of attachments laying there on the ground, and I think I just listed all of the attachments that would be there. Well, not anymore. So now, just look at one of the most popular attachments here. I've got the Mag Grips screen up. And what Mag Grips is it's probably, if you're going to buy attachments and you're really going to want to dial in your training and you're a bodybuilder and you need to isolate particular parts of your musculature in your cable work, I think these are great. There's, again, what's another $60, right? What's another $70? What's another $65? But just for pulling attachments, Mag Grips has 8 different varieties. They have a 3/4 grip, they have a neutral close grip, they have a pronated close grip, they have a supinated close grip, they have a neutral medium grip, a pronated medium grip, a supinated medium grip, a wide neutral grip. Like they've got, and you've got 8 different attachments here just to replace basically your lat pull down bar. Another good one here that I see now that people are kind of going crazy with. We've got this Rogue. What was it called? A CG1C multi grip camber bar. So we've got 3 different handles: medium, narrow, and wide. And then the narrow handle has 2 different attachment points you can move it to. The medium one has 6 different places that you can put it. I've seen one of these, and it might be this one, where you can now either install the handles straight or angled. And in reality, 90% of the people that buy this are never going to move the handles once. But gee, look at all that complexity on there, right? So you've got that. So that's another really good example of, and I could go on. This is going to be a long podcast already, so I decided not to put up too many of these, but you guys get the idea, right? Like a lot of you have the same wall of cable attachments that I have. And in reality, I just did a review of the Aries 2.0 wall mount with their storage wings. One of the things that I pointed out on the storage panels that you can buy to go next to the Aries is they're not very wide, right? Like I can't fit all of my attachments. However, you know what I can fit? All of the attachments that I actually use. So, it's a great example of maybe not needing all of the complexity hanging on your wall. So let's now go to the third thing, which is going to apply to the folks watching on the training channel. And that's just training methodologies, right? So I have a list here that I made. Now, as a trainer who's been training for quite a while, has been certified for a little while, and as just an avid workout person who's always liked following what is marketed as the most effective programming out there. We started off with the big 3, right? Like we started off with Mark Ripeto's book, which I believe does the big 5, just 3 basic lifts or 5 basic lifts. You've got your deadlift, your squat, your bench press, your row, and your overhead press, right? And guys, those old school powerlifter guys, guess what movements those guys did? They did that, and they did them as heavy as possible. And of course, they did some accessory work and things like that, but that was the bulk of their programming. Then at some point, we started doing the bro split because, those 5 lifts are boring. So now we've got to do, back and buys on one day, and chest and tries on another day, and legs on another day, and arms on another day, and shoulders on another day. And you've got to hit all those muscles, and we've got to take what should be a relatively simple approach to programming. We've got to divide it out among every single possible body part we have. And in reality, we skip leg day and we do another arm day, right? Like that's kind of the bro split. Then we go, well, let's try to do, now we're going to do push pull legs. Well, that's not good enough. Now we're going to do upper lower, upper lower. No, that's not good enough. Now we're going to do push pull legs, upper lower, right? Now we're going to do that split. And then again, don't forget to skip one of those lower days and do arm day instead, because that's also part of the programming there. And then, oh, by the way, none of those programs is any good unless science. We've got to add science into everything. And now you see these science-based lifting channels out there. So let's talk about all of the stuff that the good old university researchers and scientists have pointed out over the years that was the best groundbreaking method of training ever devised in the history of training. So first we had what did we start here? We started with high volume. High volume is the most the more volume you do, the better off you are. Studies show that high volume is better than low volume. So we're going to take that bro split, and now we're going to do, instead of doing back and buys for an hour each day, we're going to do back and buys for 3 hours each day and really hammer the volume, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, low volume, right? Like Mike Menser, I believe, was the guy who made this possible. Where it's like, you do 1 set to fail. You do 1 set. That's all you have to do. Just do 1 all out super hard set. That's all you got to do. Forget all this volume stuff. Just do this. And that guy, if Mike Menser is the person who did this, it's one of those guys, one of those really famous old bodybuilder champions, and won a bunch of bodybuilding competitions, right? Professional bodybuilder, made a huge name for himself because now science shows low volume. Then we got to talk about the range of your reps. Okay, so then it was, okay, full range with control through the full range. That science shows that's the best. So everybody is doing full range. And then they went, oh, well, wait a minute. No. You see, now what you have to do is you have to do a slow eccentric and a fast concentric. Just full range isn't enough. how you work with it. We've shown through lots of studies at our university that slow eccentrics and fast concentrics got to explode on the way up as fast as you can, bro. And then, new studies are out. So now at the top of that concentric, the top of that explosive concentric, you now have to hold a flexed position at the top of the concentric, because studies show that is the most effective way to gain muscle. And then you got to really do the squeeze. Oh, wait a minute. Nope. Turns out that studies show, new university studies show, that it's not the squeeze, it's the stretch. It's the complete other end of the range of motion that's actually important. So now we have to go and we have to make every exercise, every machine, everything work from the stretch, right? You got to get stretched as far as got to do seated leg curls with a good stretch. Does your leg press give you a good enough stretch? Are you getting deep enough to get a stretch? Because boy, your muscles aren't going to grow at all, guys. In fact, if you don't train from the stretch, your muscles will university studies show that your muscles will probably shrink if you don't work from the stretch. So we've got to add that into our training as well. When you look at these university studies, by the way, you get like the ones that show a difference. It's crazy. When you look at the actual difference, like you get 2% more muscle growth over a 12-week study. And it's like, well, time out, guys. If you're well trained already and you're not making a lot of look, once you get past the first couple years of training and you're past your newbie gains, it's hard, as you guys know. And for those of you who are new, congratulations. Enjoy the first 2 years of your training. You're going to grow more. If you're consistent, you'll grow more in those first 2 years than in the rest of your training for the most part. Definitely faster, right? But once you're past that, the amount of muscle you can put on in a month or a year isn't all that much. So when you're talking about a 2% gain or even a 5% gain, which by the way, 5% gain gets in the realm of steroids. So all these technique differences don't give you that, but you get a 2% gain, right? So you see guys completely change their training, completely change out all of their machines because their leg curl doesn't give them a good enough stretch, and they're putting arms on their machines so that they can get a better stretch one way or another, and it's crazy. And these same guys, by the way, don't sleep well, don't eat well, they're stressed, right? So there's three things, by the way. If you can get your sleep and your nutrition right, you're talking literally like a 10% increase in performance or more just from those things. In fact, there are several studies that show that getting the proper amount of sleep, the amount of testosterone in a person's body after a good amount of sleep for several nights versus that same person who gets poor sleep several nights is the same difference as if they had actually taken steroids. So you got everybody out there trying to overcomplicate their workouts, overcomplicate their training, overcomplicate their pull down handles and their Smith machines and things like that. And at the same time, they won't go to bed. I'm one of them, by the way. They won't put their stupid phone away and go to bed and get 8 hours of sleep because, I'm different. I can get by in 6 hours. Yeah, no, you can't, especially if you're over 35. No, you can't. Now, you might not be able to get more than 6 hours, but if you get 8, I promise you'll feel like a superhero. But anyway, I digress, as I like to do on this podcast. So let's get back to building our gyms. And when we're building our gyms, if we're building our gyms for funsies and we're out there just to have fun and we like all of our toys, it's awesome. Go buy all the complex workout gear that you want. Go buy Vultras, add the extra plug-in programming, do everything you can with them, mount them in 700 different places, use every possible different variation of training built into those things, because I'm sure that they're super fun. If you're out there to get results, let's talk about the actual difference that all of this complexity will make. How much of a difference will it make to have a full wall control of pull down attachments? How much different? And by the way, those were just a couple of examples. I could make that example in leg machines. I could do that example in shoulder training. I could make an example out of all of this stuff that we build our gyms out of. But let's take a look at, and you guys are going to get a peek inside the disturbing mind of a trainer like myself, who basically just sits and ruminates about this stuff and wonders about it and researches it and wonders what will work and then wants to try it on himself and on clients, and just kind of how I think about stuff. But here's an example, and I really want you guys' opinion. So I have found that as I get older, that I find myself becoming the old man standing on his porch screaming at clouds sometimes because I'm so stuck in my ways. So if I'm wrong on this stuff, please let me know. Put it down in the comments. I'm happy to have a discussion about it. But I'm going to call on some of my experience as a trainer working with clients, some of my experience talking to other trainers who have worked with clients for years and years and years, and maybe kind of paint a picture that will hopefully at the end of this podcast tie everything in a nice little bow and help us build better garage gyms that help us not only have more fun, but get better results. And I want us to do a little bit of a mental exercise here. So I want us to imagine that we have two twins. They start off in the same shape. So you'll see a lot of studies use twins because if they're identical twins, they're literally identical. So they respond the same to the same stimulus. So if you put two different twins under two different sets of stimuli, you can get a realistic idea of the difference between the stimuli and how effective or not effective it is. So I want you guys to do this mental experiment with me. So twin number one, here's what we're going to do with twin number one as a trainer. We're going to build them a gym and we're going to design some programming for them. So, and this study is going to take place over the course of a year. So play along with me here. So twin number one, we are going to have them train full body 3 days a week. No fancy splits, no complex programming, no nothing like that. Just full body training 3 days a week. And for those of you who haven't done really well programmed full body training, I'm going to give you an example here of that. But basically what you're going to have is you're going to have one day as a squat emphasis, one day as a pushing emphasis, and one day is a hinging emphasis, because you're not doing the same full body training. And one mistake that a lot of people make when they do full body trainings, they're like, well, I've got to train so they work literally every single muscle. They do 50 sets in a day and they hate full body training. And effective full body training is not that. So for this example, full body training will be a squat focused day, a push focused day, and a hinge focused day, but every day will be full body. And I'm going to give you the actual programming here in just a second. These sessions typically will take between 45 to 60 minutes a day, including warm up. So it's pretty easy in and out. And then the gear that we're going to give this person in their garage gym. Here's the garage gym we're going to build them. We're going to give them a rack. We're going to give them a single barbell. We're going to give them some plates. We're going to give them an adjustable bench and some dumbbells. Now, there'll be some accessories in there, like we might give them some bands and things like that. But that's going to be, those 5 pieces are going to be the core of their gym. That's what they're going to be training on for this next year in that 3-day-a-week full body programming. So the way the programming is going to work is every 4 weeks, we're going to change the programming so that they can progress over time. And there aren't going to be any deload weeks, because one of the nice things about programming like this is when you're not training 5 and 6 days a week, you're not killing your body. And oh, by the way, we are working within about 2 reps of technical failure. So for those of you who don't train a lot, what that means is technical failure is when you're trying to do a lift and your form starts to break down. As soon as you start to have to cheat a rep, that's failure. Not failure as in I'm going to die, the bar is stuck on my throat. That's not failure we're talking about. We're talking about I can't do a rep with perfect form anymore. We're actually going to stop 2 to 3 or 1 to 2 reps short of technical failure. So we're not killing ourselves. So we don't need deload weeks, right? And for me, the way that I do that, I've talked about this on another podcast. Basically, the first week of every 4-week cycle is kind of a little bit of a back off as you try and figure out what weights you're using for the new set of exercises. So it's kind of a natural little bit of a back off built in there. So there's no reason to take weeks off. And here's what those look like. So I'm not going to give you the programming for the other twin because it's too long. But for this one, what I wanted to do, especially for the folks on the training channel, if you want to start with 2 to 3 day a week full body training, which is what I recommend to everybody, here's just a sample of what I would program for a client. On Monday, what we're going to do is we're going to do heavy squat pattern for 3 sets of 8. And squat pattern, I'm saying that because I'm not talking about putting your barbell. That could be a goblet squat. That could be a bodyweight squat if you can't do squats very well. That could be any number of, it could be a split squat. It could be any number of squat variations. We're going to do a heavy row, dumbbell, barbell, whatever, 3 sets of 8. We're going to do a vertical pull. We're either going to do lat pull downs, we're going to do narrow grip pull downs, we're going to do pull ups, whatever is going to challenge you. And that's how we're going to progress over the years. We're going to vary those exercises, but we're going to do some type of a vertical pull. We're going to do 3 sets of 10 of that. We're going to do hip thrusts. We're going to do 5 sets of 12. Glutes are severely underworked, especially for men. And guys, I'm telling you, if you want to get better at whatever sport you happen to play, train your glutes. Power starts with your glutes. Function starts with your glutes. No back pain starts with your glutes. And it's the thing that we tend to skip a lot. So I program in pretty significant amount of hip thrusts there. And then we're going to do a heavy carry, which is kind of a full body core training thing. We're going to do 3 to 5 sets at about 30 seconds a carry. And I don't care what you carry. carry a couple heavy kettlebells, carry a couple heavy dumbbells, you can carry a heavily loaded trap bar, doesn't matter. Wednesday, we're going to move on to our push emphasis day. So our key performance lifts of the day. First of all, we're going to do a heavy press of some type, whether that's a dumbbell press, that could be loaded push-ups, right? Like if you're not that strong yet or you don't have the equipment, but some type of a pressing movement, we're going to do 3 sets of 8. We're going to do 3 sets of 8 split squats. So that's going to be some type of a split squat variation. Doesn't have to be any foot elevated, or doesn't have to be Bulgarian split squats, but you're going to have your feet apart. You're going to work on your stability by doing 3 sets of 8 split squats. You're going to do a lighter squat variation. I like goblet squats here for this. I like band resisted squats. Nothing super heavy. We're just trying to work on range, and I like 3 sets of 10 for that. We're going to do reverse flies or some type of banded pull aparts or something to get the back of your shoulders. We're going to do 3 sets of 15 of that. We're not using super heavy stuff. And then we're also going to do 3 sets of 15 cable chops. That's going to work your core. It's going to work rotation and things like that. So far we've got 5 movements on Monday, 5 movements on Wednesday, and we've also got 5 movements on Friday. We're going to do a heavy deadlift variation. That could be RDLs, that could be actual deadlifts, that could be rack pulls, whatever your body is capable of doing. But we want to push yourself, right? 3 sets of 8. You're going to do some type of a heavy dumbbell row variation, and you're going to do 3 sets of 8 of that. You're going to do inverted rows. You're going to do 5 sets of 10. We're going to really hammer the back here on this day. And they're going to do leg curls, 3 sets of 15. If you don't have a leg curl machine for this, what I'd like to do is I like to just do physio ball leg curls. So that's one of those oddball things you might throw into this person's setup, but some type of a hamstring work. You could do regressed Nordic curls, something like that. But something banded leg curls, I like to use a band. Just lay on the ground, hook a band around your heels, the other end around an upright of the power rack, and we're just doing 3 sets of 15. It's just pump work here. That's all that it is. And then we're going to do what's called a pal off press with some bands, or we're going to do a pal off press with dumbbells, or you're going to do, I like to do like a suitcase barbell hold. Well, you're going to load up a barbell, grab it in one hand and stand up and hold it. Something to work your core. We're going to do 5 sets of those. So that's your 3 days. Pretty straightforward. For those of you who have never done or haven't in a long time done a full body program that is well programmed, that's literally going to get you everything that you need without making you go crazy every day, that's a good example. And the reason I took the time to do that, like I said, is for the folks on the Jim Crafter Training channel who are looking to start training. This is a great place to start, is doing something like that. It won't take you that long. You can scale it and modulate it to fit your strength level. You can do any of those movements with a variety of different implements. You don't need a lot of stuff. And you can definitely do it with the 5 things this particular twin is going to have in their gym. We're also going to throw in some cardio because we can. Because they're not lifting 5 and 6 days a week, we're going to do some zone 2 work. We're going to do 30 to 45 minutes of just brisk walking a few times a week, right? Just work up your work capacity, and that'll help you lose the weight that you're looking to lose. But we just want to keep your cardio capacity kind of built up over the course of that year. That's what we're doing with twin number 1. Very basic, very simple, no fancy machines, no fancy stuff for their cable system, don't even have a cable system, right? Like for the vertical pulling for this particular person, we're just going to do band assisted pull-ups. You're going to wrap a band around the bar, a band around your knee, and you're going to use as many bands as you need until you can do the number of pull-ups prescribed in the workout. So that's kind of where we're starting. Twin number 2, what we're going to do is we're going to do a 5-day split. And what we're going to do is, by the way, for those of you out there who don't want to do full body, you like to be in the gym 5 days a week, the single most effective split that I've had success with myself and that I've had success with clients and that I've seen other trainers have success with is push, pull, legs, upper, lower. So that's probably the most effective. I really would avoid the bro splits and the body part splits unless you are a professional bodybuilder training twice a day. I don't think that those are as effective. Now, they're fun, but they're not as effective at building overall strength as doing a push-pull legs upper lower. Doing this particular type of split, you're going to spend not 45 minutes to an hour. You're going to spend an hour to an hour and a half in the gym 5 days a week. We don't have time for cardio now, so it's just going to be lifting. The gear that this person, we're going to build this person one heck of a gym. Man, you guys are going to love this gym. It's going to have everything we just talked about. It's also going to have a cable machine. By the way, the first person, I'm not against giving them like a cable tower, right? Cables are going to make some of those movements a little bit easier to scale. So not a bad idea to do that, but still keeping it simple. But we're definitely going to give this person a cable machine. We're also going to give this person an entire suite of leg machines. We are going to have a leg press. We are going to have a hack squat. We are going to to have a seated leg curl. We are going to have a leg extension. We are going to have a pendulum squat. We're going to have all the science-based stuff that can get you in the perfect stretched position and the perfect way to do tons of volume, because volume's where it's at, right? We're going to have the Temple of Gains multi-flight so that you can do flies, and you can do flies in so many different ways and angles and things like that. You're gonna be able to work your shoulders in a zillion different ways. You're gonna have a VTS from Bulletproof, and you're gonna have every single attachment that they have out now, and you're gonna have every single attachment that they come out with in the next year, which, based on the history of that machine, is gonna be quite a few different cool things, right? You're definitely gonna have a pair of Voltras, because we want you to be able to do partials. We want you to be able to overload your eccentrics. We want you to be able to do automatic drop sets. We want you to be able to do pyramids. We want you to be able to do 21s. We want you to be able to do all of that stuff and automate it, right? And then, so you guys get the idea. We're going to build you one heck of a gym. And if you go on Instagram, you can see this exact gym over and over and over and over again as people post their gyms for people to look at and comment on and admire, which I do a lot. So I love garage gym porn as much as the next garage gym guy. So I've seen quite a few of these gyms. Now, here's what we're going to do. Now, I'm not going to go over the specific programming for this because it would be far too long of a podcast. Probably going to be far too long of a podcast anyway. But as an example, what we're going to do on a typical, when I program a push-pull legs upper lower split, typically what I'll do is this. Day one is pushing. We're going to do about 7 movements. We're going to do a bunch of warm-up sets. We're going to hit every possible angle you can think of. The next day, we're going to do pull. We're going to do about 7 pulling movements. So you're talking probably 25 to 35 sets on each of these days, depending on how hard the person wants to push. For legs, we're going to do 10 movements because we got to use all those leg machines, right? And instead of squats, what we're going to do is we're going to work our hamstrings with one machine. We're going to work our quads with another one, because we got to be able to stretch both of those, and you can't stretch both of those at the same time with the same movement, right? On the upper day, we're going to do about 8 movements. On lower day, we're going to do about 9 movements. So you're doing quite a few more sets. So there's all that volume that science tells us we need, right? And we're also going to use, within those days, we're going to use all the techniques, right? First of all, we are not going to train any muscle not in the stretch. We are going to make sure and integrate into every movement that you are starting fully stretched. We're also going to do what's called myo reps. Now, if you dig deep enough in the training black hole that is YouTube, you will come across myo reps. In short, it's go till you absolutely can't go anymore, rest for a few seconds, then go till you can't absolutely go anymore, then rest for a few seconds, and then go till you absolutely can't go anymore. And there's a way of determining how many reps you should be doing. And it's brutal and it's sore, and you won't be able to move that body part the next day. But science. And then everything's to failure. Everything's to failure. We're going to do pyramids. We're going to do 21s. We're going to do drop sets. We're going to do supersets. We're going to do trisets. Oh, also, you're going to do deep stretching during every rest period, because science shows that that's what you need to do. Now, here's my question. That's training for twin number 2. Now, some of you can identify with twin number 1. Some of you train like twin number 1. Some of you can identify with twin number 2, and some of you train like twin number 2. Some of you have gyms that twin number 2 could just come work out in, right? Like you're already set up for this experiment. Most of us fall somewhere in between, in fairness. These are 2 extreme examples. But between these 2 extreme examples, what I want to ask you is, who got better results? At the end of the year, who has better results? And what I mean by better results is who's bigger, who's stronger, who has a better looking physique. This is an important one, right? Because the reason people typically want to get bigger and stronger is they want to look better. When you search how to do anything in fitness on YouTube, the thumbnails that get the most clicks are always the one with the best physique in the thumbnail. So even if you don't want to admit that you're doing it for looks, a lot of people, or most people, are doing it at least in part for looks. So who's going to look better? Who's going to be in less pain? Who's going to be able to move better? Who's going to be more mobile? Who's going to have had more of a chance of not being injured over the last year? So think about who got better results. And like I said, this is a genuine question. I really feel like the older I get, the more, like I said, I'm just a man standing there yelling at the clouds, and I'm stuck in my ways, and gosh darn it, this is my opinion and this is the only right way. And as I said at the beginning, the older and wiser you get, and hopefully I'm getting a little bit wiser, the more you realize that the only thing you know for sure is you don't know anything. So I'm happy to be proven wrong on this. However, let's talk about this. Now, if these twins are in their 20s, if these twins are on steroids or gear, if these twins are on HRT, because I see guys, especially for people my age, I'm really seeing a scary trend of these guys out there who are on HRT and they're just jacked to the tits, right? Like they are just gigantic. That's not normal HRT, guys. That's not normal testosterone replacement therapy. These guys are taking steroid levels of testosterone and calling it HRT, and they've got, as much testosterone in them as they would have when they were 13-year-old boys, right? But if you're that person, and again, no shade, right? If that's you, that's awesome. If that's what you've decided to do, great. You look awesome, by the way. I'd love to look like that. Anyways, if you're one of those people, right? Then if you're in your 20s, if you're on gear, if you're on HRT, then training system number 2 is going to win. Training system number 2 is going to build more muscle faster. It's going to build more strength. It's going to be more effective because your body is able to keep up with that. However, if you're not in one of those 3 groups and you're 35 or older and you're not on HRT or you're not on a superhuman amount of testosterone, you're not taking steroids, you're not doing those things, and you're not willing to train, and oh, by the way, there's the simple fact of how many people can stick with twin number 2's training regimen for more than a few months. In my experience as a trainer, not many. I would argue that twin number 1's programming and gym is going to get you better results. So let me talk about why I'm saying that. So I'm a certified personal trainer. I've trained people here in my garage gym. I've gotten a lot of people results, both in losing weight and gaining strength. I've talked to a lot of trainers who've trained way more people than I have for a much longer time, including the people that I go to for training, right? And almost without exception, what you have to keep in mind is that personal trainers who do this for a living, we get paid for 2 things. We get paid for people continuing to train with us. This is an often overlooked thing, especially for young trainers, is they're like, I'm going to beat the snot out of this person. And then they wonder why their clients don't stick around for more than 4 or 6 weeks, right? Some of you have hired trainers, have maybe had these trainers, and you're like, this is miserable. I'm not going back to these people. So our job is to get people to come back to us for years and years and years and years and years. And then also that over those years and years and years, we get paid for results. If you don't want to come to us and you're not getting results, we ain't getting paid. So typically, experienced trainers who have done this successfully for a long time and aren't out there showing their butts on Instagram. They're literally out there in the real world training real people who don't necessarily look all that great on thumbnail pictures, so won't get them clicks on social media. Those people, 95% of the time, here's what we will tell you. Number 1, 2 to 3 days of full body training a week gets markedly better results in an older training population, again, 35 and older, than any type of split does, than any type of 5-day a week, 6-day a week, upper, lower, body part, any of that stuff. 2 to 3 full body days a week are going to get you better results 95% of the time. Here's what else happens. Joint pain tends to recede or go away completely. Mobility tends to get much better. You tend to move better and more fluidly and more athletically. Pain goes away, stress goes down. All of a sudden, your cortisol levels aren't jacked to maximum all the time because you're not killing your body every single day in the gym. And the lower cortisol levels allow for better sleep, which allows for better recovery. And oh, by the way, those people, because they feel better, and over time they look better, those people come back and they're the clients that we retain for many, many years. Now, that helps the folks in the Gym Crafter training channel. What about the Gym Crafter folks who are here to build a great home gym? What does this have to do with you? Well, what this has to do with you is this. Even if you're a hobbyist, now again, if you're a hobbyist, if you're a gym nerd like me, yes, complexity is fun. We love all this stuff. I'm not knocking that. I have got a garage full of stuff downstairs because I like the complexity. As I said at the beginning, I am a master at overcomplicating every little aspect of my life. And in a lot of cases to the point where I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm not knocking that. However, when I look at, and I just did a podcast of, hey, if I'm rebuilding from scratch, it was actually the previous podcast I recorded. If I was rebuilding from scratch and I was just focused on results, this is the gym I would build. When I went back and listened to that podcast recently, I'm like, yeah, I don't need half that stuff. Like, I don't even, as simple of a gym as I built in that podcast, I don't even need half that stuff, right? So what happens is that when you have the complex toys in your gym, then you are tempted to use them. And when you're tempted to use them, that means that you overcomplicate your training. If all you have is a barbell and dumbbells, then there's only so many different squat variations you can do. When you start adding a leg press, hack squat, leg extension, leg curl, all of a sudden, a squat day, which maybe had one or two squat movements in it, now have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 leg movements in it. And you're overtraining and you're overcomplicating and you're not moving in the way that your body is meant to move. You're not training in a natural movement pattern. So what happens is the more stuff we buy for our gyms and the more complex we buy things for our gyms, the more complex our training, and in a lot of cases, the less effective our training gets. And somebody like myself, and one of the reasons I think about this a lot is this is a lot of these podcasts are reflections of what I'm going through personally. And right now, as you guys know, I'm working with a coach. I hired a coach to take my training out of my hands. And we have absolutely gone back to the basics. I have been doing for the last 2.5 months now, full body training 3 days a week. And as much as I wanted to fight it, and as much as I didn't want to do it, and as much as I'm like, well, if that's what I mean, that's why I hired a coach, right? To make me do the things that I need to do, not the things that I want to do. My results are way better. I'm gaining strength, I'm gaining stability, my joints feel better. I'm just overall healthier. I'm starting to look better. It's just much more effective. And even though I didn't want it to be, I want to be down there lifting weights 6 or 7 days a week, doing everything I can with all the toys I have down there. Trust me, that's what I would rather be doing. It's been really hard for me to back off. But as you build your gym, especially for those of you who are listening to this podcast or watch this channel to get advice on how to actually build your first gym or build a gym that you're going to love and you're going to use, keep it simple. Don't get wooed by the all-in-one trainers that have 9,000 different attachments hanging off the side because, you need jammer arms. You don't need jammer arms. Nobody needs jammer arms, dang it. But, if they show them hanging off the front of that all-in-one trainer, then all of a sudden that one looks better to you than another one. And boy, that one's also got a Smith machine that leans in and is converging. And it's also got, a moving this and a rotating that and a seat and a foot plate and 7 different cable ratios. And all of a sudden you're buying this thing that's got all this stuff. And when in reality, you just don't need all of that stuff. And marketers are super good at making us all think that we need that next greatest thing, right? Like I go back and forth on Vultras. I would love to have a pair of Vultras, but when I was sitting there thinking about it the other day, I'm like, okay, man, it's cool. It does the accentuated eccentrics and it does the drop sets automatically. And then this thought popped into my head. So what? So what? So what? It does that stuff. Is it fun? Yeah. Is it fun to tinker with? Yeah. Is it going to get me better results? No, it's not. Because I can do all that stuff anyway, right? It's not like it does stuff that nothing else can do. It simulates bands. I have bands, so it's not that. So the thought of so what, and that's knocking it to an extent it shouldn't be knocked. It's a cool product, and someday I'll have them, and someday I'll play with them, and someday I'll go, wow, I was wrong. I really like these. But for now, to me, for most people, things like the Vultras overcomplicate things. So to bring this back for full circle is what I would say is to remember what I've been thinking about a lot. Remember what those masters at lifting, those people who have lifted their entire lives, who have figured out how to do it and not be broken down and sore and not be injured and to be inhumanly strong, to be just beasts in the gym, to move a ton of weight, to live a long time, to be healthy. And remember what they had to say, right? Lift heavy shit a few times a week, fuel yourself right with the right kind of food, and get enough sleep. And that, my friends, is all I've got for this episode of the Gym Crafter Podcast. For those of you watching on the Gym Crafter Training channel, if you like this type of content, make sure you subscribe on the Gym Crafter channel. I release this podcast semi-irregularly, but I try and get one out at least every Monday or every other Monday. And then for those of you on the Gym Crafter channel, if you are looking to lose weight, I've got that playlist coming out pretty soon on the Gym Crafter Training channel, along with a lot of other playlists that will hopefully let you get more out of the awesome gym that you have in your garage. And that's all I got for today, folks. So thanks for listening this long. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, all that kind of fun YouTube stuff. And until next time, I'm Tim with Gym Crafter.